Alrighty, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and do another quick sound check just to make sure everybody can hear me. There's a little guy at the top of your screen. Go ahead and raise your hand. As Simon says, raise your hand. See, Michael is on and Chelsea is on. Dee has raised her hand. Jeannie, very good. So we are good to go. We had some issues yesterday, so I apologize for that. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Juana Amaria, and I'm with Illinois WorkNet. We're very excited to be able to provide a social media 2.0 version of the social media series that we did a couple years ago, and it's really exciting to be, I feel like, at a very different time where we're no longer kind of pleading with people to get the value of maybe participating in something like that. Now everybody really gets it. And it's been a couple years, so people are working hard to, to get integrated and have it be a part of their system. And so we're happy to have you on and share some of the tips that we have for you today. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and go through some housekeeping items. Up at the top, if you do end up having issues hearing with your broadcast, go ahead and call the conference call number. The number's up there. It's 866-803-3878. Underneath that, you have the chat pod, and this is how you have a chance to really interact with us, ask questions, interact with your other participants on the webinar. Um, as well as share information that you may have. Maybe you're further ahead, maybe you're a pro, and you're helping out somebody that is just getting started. Underneath the chat pod, you have the file share. Go ahead and select the file name, and then you could download or save to your computer. So this is a way that you could follow along. You'll have a lot of that information with the reminder email that I sent out. So to the right-hand side, we have two questions for you, and we just want to know where are you in your social media process, and then what's your level of expertise. So are you a guru? Are you familiar but not quite sure how to do it all for your work instead of maybe your personal activities? So go ahead and let us know. And I'm going to switch my screen now so that you can see the PowerPoint a little bit bigger. And below the PowerPoint, what you'll notice is that you have a bunch of links and resources, and we'll refer to those as we're going through the PowerPoint just to let people know kind of what's out there. And so what I wanted to share with you all, and I'm going to unmute our guest today, which is Dee Reinhardt, is this is really a part of a series of webinars that will really build your momentum and build your know-how on, one, how to create your strategy, so it's really about your plan, two, going through your social media basics, so how do you start the various pages, and things change all the time. So it's really about teaching you how to rethink this process and how to create this mindset, because the truth is, even though we're working very hard at putting this social media course together with Southern Illinois University Center for Workforce Education, Workforce Development and Education, it's always changing, and that's kind of the beauty of social media. So for those of you that are on and have a Facebook page for your group, you'll notice that you're constantly having to upgrade things or, get new apps because everything, you go on there and now there's timeline, and so we're really trying to teach you how to assess and how to think about the things that you want, and then point you in the right direction to create the system to be able to build, because it's really about that momentum. And then how do you access these resources so that you stay up to speed with what's going on with social media. So the first one is your social media strategy. That's this week. Then the week of March 8th and 9th will be the social media basics. We'll have social media tools on the week of the 29th and 30th, and that really walks you through how am I going to use this, how am I going to break it down. The week of April 19th and 20th is your alternative HR resources. So this is for those looking for talent as well as for those looking for jobs and how to use social media as a way to do that. And we'll tap into a little bit of that through this webinar as well. And then we'll go through your social media image, right? So you've created all these pages, and how do I manage and maintain all of that? And that's May 3rd and 4th. And then the last one is really about developing your social media policy. So the 24th and 25th of May is kind of saying, okay, now you've got all this stuff up and going. What are the things that need to be in place to keep it sustainable? Because that's really the most important thing. And social media is like a snowball. You need to be able to really know what you're packing in there from the beginning, because it's all just going to tumble through, and you want to make sure you have a good system in place. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Um, and so as I mentioned, this module is really about creating that foundation for your social media, and introducing students as well as workforce professionals um, to what you need to identify, right? So understanding the social media strategy, understanding the type of tools that you have available to you, as well as some of the benefits and limitations that you may have as you go through this process, and we'll give you some really good examples. So the breakdown of the webinar today is really going through the relevance of social media, going through some of the tools and why they should matter. We'll go through and help you kind of define your social media strategy, and then give you a chance to see the challenges that we'll have a case study to be able to really show you what that looks like and what happens if you don't kind of follow through on that strategy. And then Dee Reinhardt will go through a demo with you and really start building that mindset to get you to start thinking and asking some of the questions that you'll need for your own organization, group, or company. And so I want to ask you all not to cheat, because I have a really fun part of this course, and you already have the PowerPoint, so you're going to have to promise me you won't look at the answers. But I wanted to put some really fun stats out there for you to understand the relevance of social media. So that starts with over 50% of the world's population is under 30 years old. So these are the millennials. We have 96% of those millennials have joined social networks. So this is really about showing you where people are at and how we communicate these days. So if Facebook were a country, it'd be the third largest country in the world. And so that just really gives you an idea population-wise of how many people are on here. And then 1 of 8 couples married in the U.S. met via social media. So go ahead and use your little hand guy. If you met your couple using social media, I'm just curious. I want to see if the stat is correct, because it sounds a little bit far-fetched to me. Raise your hand. Let me know. Oh, so there are people raising their hands. Very cool. So the other stat that I have here is about Wikipedia. And so here I have Wikipedia has over 15 million articles. Studies show that it's as accurate as Encyclopedia Britannica, and 78% of these articles are non-English. And so all of this really kind of gives you an idea. If you were paid $1 for every article posted on Wikipedia, you would make $1,712 an hour. Now that would be a sweet job to have. So this just gives you an idea, and this is all free stuff, right? So that's the best part of social media. So the other thing that I have on here, and this is where you can't cheat, is it's really about communicating and reaching the masses. And so the example I have here is, how long do you think it took radio to hit the masses, where everyone had a radio in their home? And go ahead and just type it in the chat pod. Let me know, how long do you think it took for radio to hit the masses? You can't look at your PowerPoint. 75 years. 10. I see people typing, so I'm going to give you a chance. 15, 5. The answer is 38 years. So imagine, it took 38 years for radio to hit families all over. Okay, so you have another chance. What about TV? How long do you think it took TV to hit the masses? 12, 55, 20. Are you all giving me bogus numbers just to make me feel good? The answer is 13 years. It took 13 years for TV to hit the masses. Okay, one more. How long do you think it took internet to hit the masses? 2, 1, 3. The answer is 4 years.
Wow, Jeannie.
So one more. This is, you have your iPods, your iPads, your iStuff. How long do you think it took to hit the masses? 1 year. Oh, people are catching on. Close, 3 years. So just to give you an idea, and the reason I add that is because I think sometimes we take for granted kind of how quickly technology has helped us progress in the way that we communicate with one another, let alone with the masses and getting messages overnight. And so a good example of that is imagine through that progression, it took Facebook less than a year to have over 200 million users, right? So really, really interesting to see how quickly it's taken off, as well as the various application downloads. It took 9 months to hit 1 billion downloads. And so I almost feel like, how did people communicate before all of this, right? And so the other thing I wanted to add in there, and this is a really interesting thing to think about as we start defining what our social media strategy is, um, the world now is all about user-based content. And so 34% of bloggers post their opinions about stuff. And especially with social media and whatnot, if you like something, everybody's checking into a place or for instance, my social media page has turned into like a food blog. I'm always taking pictures of the food that I'm eating and sharing like, oh, I really like this restaurant, or oh, I really love this. And so it's really become a world of mouth because, social media is not just the U.S. And this is something really important to identify as well, especially for those people that say, like, I can't keep track of all that stuff. Well, the truth is it's all kind of filtered towards the stuff that you're interested in within the group that you're interested in. And so you end up getting information, better quality at a faster pace. The other thing that I have on here is we really don't have a choice about whether we're going to do social media, and this is what I started off the webinar with. It's really about how well we do it. And this is what's exciting to me is I no longer have to sell you on the idea of you really should get on this, and now it's more selling you on the idea of how can I help you do this well. And so this is kind of where we're going to transition over. And if you're interested in all this stuff, it's all the stats are from a book called Socialnomics. And Eric Quailman, and you'll see the quote here. He's like the Peter Drucker of social media. And so fantastic book, really easy to read. You can skip chapters and just read what you're interested in, and really be able to kind of get in the know about some of the resources and information out there for you to keep fresh. And so the other part I'm going to go through is the tools of social media, and a lot of this has changed, and so we'll go through what Twitter does now versus kind of what the idea people have had before, YouTube, Facebook, and then LinkedIn. And I kept it to these four, not that there are not a gazillion other tools out there, but this is what we would typically use in the workplace. And so for LinkedIn, some ideas and stats that I think would be very interesting to you all is they have over 135 million members with a new member joining every second, about 170 industries represented. And then there's 4 billion searches on that platform. And what that means for you as a job seeker, or what that means for you as a recruiter, is this is the place to be to connect to what you need. And I can't stress that enough. And Dia is like the LinkedIn guru, but it really creates the space for you to, one, build your network, make sure you're visible, and do all the right things to really come up in those searches, because it's happening. You just need to help yourself to be able to be found. 200 countries and territories. We have all of the Fortune 500 companies. And another thing, I mentioned companies here, but LinkedIn is the number one to build partnerships with your various nonprofits, local workforce areas, and resource centers and whatnot. This is how you build or connect over your common cause or value or community. 135 million professionals as of November of last year. And then I added the student stat here because a lot of students, for instance, I teach a class and I was going through some of this information on recruitment, and nobody in the class had a LinkedIn profile, and it just blew me away. And I asked these students, how do you expect to get a job after you get out of school? And people really kind of like looked at me with a deer in headlight look, where that's the reality of the world that we live in, right? You really have to be able to kind of be where everyone else is at to have the the resources and information you need to get a job. So fun stat here with LinkedIn. So 80% of companies use social media for recruitment, and of those, 95% is happening on LinkedIn. So this is yet another reason why you really need to get on it. And then, of course, we have this fastest growing segment. The other part here, and I'm going to let Dee jump in because this is her stuff, but the brand new portion of the LinkedIn section, and things change all the time, so now you can do skills, and they have causes for your pro bono work so that you can really highlight the experience you have even if you're not getting paid. But you also have the advanced search. So Dee, I'm going to let you take over so you can kind of go through this a little bit.
All right, so when you're searching in LinkedIn, you can search for people and you can search for companies or groups, along with a couple of other things. But when you're looking for somebody, and I use this example of Oprah Winfrey, you can look, and then if that's not necessarily the person that you're looking for, you might come up with a list of people who are referenced with Oprah Winfrey in their profile. This reference shows 2,612 results. Well, that's a lot of people, and you can't necessarily find who you're looking for by doing that. So what you do then is you take companies, the location where you might be, and you can then drill down. So I picked Harpo Productions. I picked the greater Chicago area, and I found that I came down to 42 results. So the next thing that you do, when you're looking for something, you search the name or the name of the company or potentially a keyword in an advanced search. You come up with some large results, you refine your search, and then the results get more manageable. The advanced search is how recruiters use the keywords that are in your profile to find maybe 4 or 5 people that might be the perfect candidate for a job.
And you could share a lot of this with you all offline, or if you want to reach out to her on kind of tips and practices on how to be visible on LinkedIn. And so go ahead and reach out to her. The other part here with recruitment and with the workplace is about Twitter, and we like to mention it as your instant messaging to the world. And it's really, I can't stress this enough, and I hear a lot of people say, well, I get Twitter, but I don't get like what I would do with Twitter that, in my personal life or with work if I'm not like promoting a program or something. And it's really about, one, making announcements. Yeah, and please go ahead and add your handle to the chat. Dee just asked who's on Twitter. So this is like your instant messaging. So this is how you reach out to people to be able to connect. It's about making announcements. It's about crowdsourcing information, and what that means is you post a question out there within your group, and of course you have to have that network, and you need to start building it so that you can have access to these experts or people and say, okay, I'm working on blah, blah, blah. Would you, anybody have any suggestions? And so when I was sharing, updating the social media strategy, and I posted that through my Twitter, and I said, hey, anybody have any tips on things I'm missing or things I should use? And tons of people get back to you. The other thing is about having targeted conversations, right? So um, how are you seeking out the right people, and how are you finding the right resources and information? And that takes a little bit of time, and more than time, it takes consistency to be in that conversation in the first place. Then it's about sending updates, finding partners. And so, for instance, in my other life, I organize a film festival every year, a Romanian film festival. And so I went and found all the film people in the Chicagoland area. And you get all these tips about what people are up to and what they're doing. And so you start building camaraderie around this interest that you have. And so it's just one other way to be able to build these partnerships. Also find talent, and you'll notice that in your resources you have the Twitter guide, and Twitter had their very first job conference, job fair, via Twitter. And so there's a lot of really cool, interesting things happening that people aren't aware. They had companies, and there's a case study, they had companies that literally posted information about the type of intern that they wanted, and they did a recruitment session via Twitter to find their latest intern. And this is a good way for you if you're saying we want tech-savvy people or we want cutting-edge innovation and whatnot. This is how you're going to find it. This is how you're going to get it. A really good example, for instance, I was at a meeting recently with this entrepreneurship thing, and the person's contact information was their Twitter handle. And to me, it was just really interesting. Like, really, you want me to reach you via Twitter? Like, what if I had like a different question to ask you? So, but that's what they have on their card, just their Twitter handle. So, something to think about. The other thing is about moving the masses. And here I have, the Arab Spring. I mean, how many revolutions started this past year thanks to Twitter and Facebook? So if that can happen for entire populations of people, it can definitely happen where you can move the masses for your organization. And we'll have a really great example of that um, within the social media tools webinar, and we'll have an expert on that really talks about how to create causes and do campaigns to use your social media strategy. And so some fun stuff I have on here for Twitter. 200 million users, 1.6 billion queries per day. So this is the trending stuff that you hear about all the time. They make some crazy money, and so you'll see their estimated value is 7.8 billion. And we'll get through some of that. Some of the people that I talk to, especially when it comes to Twitter, ask, okay, well, that's great. Everybody's just babbling along. But what type of content? And you'll see that, yes, there is some pointless babble on there. It's about 39%, but you also have conversations, which is almost equivalent to that. And then everything in between is the pass-along value, the self-promotion, a little bit of news, a little bit of spam. So it's really being a part of that. And then some really fun, the Twitter speedometer here of the most active Twitter moments, and it just breaks down through that. And so people wonder, okay, well, why does it matter? And I found a really great snapshot here of, Ashton Kutcher and Britney Spears, although this is all a little bit scary to me, have more Twitter followers than the entire populations of, and then we um, have a couple of different countries here just to give you an idea of what's going on with Twitter. And then more so, and I have a great quote here, social recruiting is about getting engaged and having conversations with people um, before you're even thinking of them as employees or them thinking of you as an employer, because it's about being in the right place in the right time, quote unquote. And I think that social media really provides that platform to be around these types of people. With this, I'm going to take the opportunity to say, obviously, a lot of these Twitter boards are free, and it does take time to be a part of that. And even with things like these webinars, you get to chat with these different participants. It's just another way for you to network and share ideas and connect with people in a different way, right? So um, posting jobs on microjobs or Indeed or Simply Hired, all of these are places where people are posting for free. So we're really giving the big job board groups kind of a run for their money with the various um, issues and resources. And I see that Kalowski says that we cannot access Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. And we'll talk about that in some of the challenges with different organizations and how it works with the various agencies. So speaking of
Before you move
Facebook,
on, Juana,
yeah?
there is an article in the resources. It's the recent article on recruiters using social media. It's about how people recruiting for jobs are using LinkedIn and Twitter. So you might want to check out that recent blog post.
Mm-hmm. And you can just scroll down, use the scroll down tab to access that if it's below what you can see in the actual box. The other thing, and we talk about this all the time as well, is with Facebook, because people think, okay, that's great. Why don't you have a food blog on your Facebook? But how am I going to use this for work? And a lot of it, and we refer to it as the online cocktail party, or I like to say your after-school activities. Employers want to know who you are as a whole person. We're no longer in the world where you can be schizophrenic about who you are. You can't be the super shy guy at work and then the super crazy guy at home, right? So giving you some stats here on what Twitter has, and I apologize for the crazy ambulance noise here. The Facebook aspect of our work life is about one, building community and having a spot to be able to share that information, to share your work culture. We did an audit yesterday with one of the organizations, and they had these awesome pictures of the kind of stuff that they do at work. For me, I want to know if I'm going to be spending, a predominant part of my life at this place every day, what type of organization that is. More so as an employer, when you're recruiting and searching for people, you're really you want to know who this person is, and you're going to get a good impression of who they are based on things like their Facebook profile. And so we'll have some tips on that as well. Um, but and Marla posts this. Yeah, absolutely. She wrote, we can use a manager is afraid of it because she does not understand them, and you'll come across that a lot, and you'll see that in the case study that we'll bring up later. But it's really about, one, building your customer or community base. You want to have these discussion boards. It's a place to really be able to get feedback and assess kind of what people are really, instant feedback is a great thing to use. Your instant customer service responses, you can readjust, and you could really start tailoring the type of services or information or even your product to the things that people are telling you. And so this used to cost a lot of money, and now you can do it for free. So it's definitely an opportunity, but it also becomes a challenge of how you're going to be able to do that. So we'll talk about it in a little bit. It's also about gathering data. You can run promotions, coordinate events, and put that information out there so that people know and people can prepare on that page. So your events, you have a wall, and you could do all these things. And then also inform and train. They have um, the Facebook Live where you can actually do similar to these webinars, and you could just have it on there. And so they have all types of really cool talks or training on various components of whatever you may be doing. Um, and so it's just an idea for you to be able um, to access these types of resources. And personally, I do a lot of homework on the type of companies. If I'm looking somebody up and I see that they don't have a Facebook page or if they don't have a Twitter handle, I just kind of feel like it works against them and how valid they are as a group. I feel like, oh, you should know about this. So just giving you my kind of my impression on that. Speaking of recruitment, 91% of recruiters screen applicants via social networks. And I give you some information on that. And what's really interesting is one of the top reasons people have been rejected had to do with the type of content that was found on their social media profile. So this is another way or another reminder to keep us authentic, right? So just make sure you have the appropriate type of pictures, and then know your settings, know your privacy settings so that you know um, what's going on your page and what kind of impressions you're creating. So I have a fun little picture there, and this is where I got this information from. So it's Justin Thompson, and it's Mean People Suck. As for YouTube, some really cool stuff. The thing that I thought was most interesting is they literally have $240,000, thousand full-length videos worth of uploads every week. So I thought that was really interesting. They have over 3 billion videos are viewed every day. And really, I like to think of YouTube as your ultimate speaker phone, right? So this is how you're getting your message across, and this is how you're going to do it in a more personal way to really reach out and engage. And, this is campaign season, so all the videos that go out. And you're able to educate, train, and promote people with a more humanistic approach. And a really good example on Illinois WorkNet, for instance, we have tons and tons of resources. And for those of you that are part of the Workforce Investment Act world, you'll know, there's just a lot going on at all times. And what we found out is people just don't scroll down, so they're not going to read all that stuff. And then when you do have stuff on there, they don't really want to read. They'd rather just click on a play button and watch the video. And so we have tons of videos on how to prepare for a job, how to prepare for an interview, how do you work on your resume, how do I transition into the workplace. So really interesting things and opportunities to be able to get across the, hit the masses and get some training and some educational information and material across without having to take your show on the road, kind of what we're doing here with the webinar, for instance. Um, so we have some stats there. So I'll go ahead and start on the strategy to make sure that we have enough time. So your social media strategy is really, and this is where I want to start kind of sharing with you so that people start building this mindset. It's about all the social media activity that you do. So whether it's customer service, recruitment, sales, whatever that may be, all of that in turn becomes your objective. And you want to be very clear and concise on how you start working towards that. And so, for instance, here, let me go ahead and hit one of the video buttons there. Um, so, so for instance, once you understand these functions of your social media activities, you'll be able to really understand the big picture. And so what I have here is this four-part process. The first part is really about how am I going to do this, right? So am I going to do it weekly? Am I going to do it daily? Am I going to do it monthly? Am I going to have this strategic plan? And then who is going to do all of these social media activities? And so identifying people, I think, is one of the bigger challenges most people have within organizations, for instance, like how we work with state and local agencies. And then once you are engaging in those types of activities, how are you going to measure that? One, your success. So are you doing what you said you were going to do? And then two, the impact. So even if you're, spinning your wheels and you'll realize social media is free, but it costs you your time. And so you really want to make sure that you're having an impact based on the activities that you're performing. And then lastly is how are you creating the system in place? And what that really means is your policy to really engage and to protect yourself with the type of information you may be sharing. Some of it is really tricky with different organizations, right? But also to encourage your staff to be able to be those champions for you. And so part of that is culture, and the other part is context. And we had some questions on the last webinar where people really wanted to know, well, what do you mean by culture and what do you mean by context? And so, for instance, um, some organizations, and Dee, you could jump in on this as well because I think you've played both ends of the spectrum. It's stricter. You don't have any access to internet, let alone social media, let alone people, have the authority to even be able to post anything on behalf of their organization. And then there's places like workNet, for instance, where we all just tag team and get the message out, and there's no, crazy bureaucracy as to, oh, is it okay for me to send this out through our Twitter feed or whatnot? And then the context is that topic. What are you talking about? So for us, we're going to be talking about employment and training. For Southern Illinois, it may be workforce education topics. It may be some new papers that came out. Um, and so for Workforce Investment Act, it may be about a new program. It did something get launched. Right around now, we start thinking, are we going to have summer youth employment? Is it going to happen, yes or no? So that's the context, meaning what are the things that you're going to be engaging in conversations um, with about, right?
So
And so,
Kowalewski mentioned that they can't use Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. Our organization that I used to work for would not allow the public to use them, but I, as the marketing person, posted constantly because most people are accessing these platforms from their home. So as long as you have a presence and someone is using them to spread your word, it's not so important that your center or your particular business employees can use it.
the
But
other
that's part of
thing,
the culture.
exactly, I was just going to say that, and that's part of this conversation or system. Um, is about how do you introduce those conversations with leadership, and we'll talk about that when we go through policy, is really being able to say, we need to get people on board from, top down, not necessarily bottom up, because if your leadership is not on board, nothing is going to happen. And you'll see that with the case study that we'll provide in a bit, but it's really about having those networks available. How do we get buy-in from your higher ups to be able to make those decisions, and then instill a level of trust within their different levels of staff to be able to carry out those activities. So the first part, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go through each. So it's about your pitch, it's about your point, it's about your one thing, the type of relationships that you have with your customer or clients, the people that are going to be engaging in these social media activities, the process of what that engagement looks like, and then how you're going to measure all of that. And so if you're wondering, so what is my pitch? It's really about it's like your elevator speech, right? What are you doing? What does your company do? And can you tell me what you do with 120 characters or less? And that comes really from the limitations of being able to tweet about it, right? When it comes to what is your point, is what type of program or product is this? And you'll see in a little bit, you don't have to, you pick one, but you can do different strategies for the different goals. So if your thing is, information, or if it's promotion or event planning, you can do different goals for your social media strategy. Your one thing. So it's really about what defines you. And my favorite example is, of course, Disney equals magic, right? So what is that one thing for you as an organization that you want to be known for? You want to be the go-to people or go-to organization on this topic. And then what type of relationship do you have with your audience, and what do they know about you? I'm going to go ahead and go through the process. So once you have kind of established all of those and defined those points, you want to know, one, I want to identify what all those things are, and then I want to prioritize. So maybe the priority with the group that had issues with social media is how do I empower and create accountability with my staff, and how do I get my leadership to understand that? And then lastly is, how do you plan those activities? So it's the actual scheduling, and we can get through all of that. And we have a specific webinar just talking about using schedulers and Hootsuite and whatnot to be able to plan it out for your entire week. The last part is really about, as I mentioned before, your success and your impact. The bottom line is, you can be spending hours on social media, but if you don't have something to show for it, if you are not driving interest, driving conversations, getting feedback, answering questions, then it's really all kind of in vain. And so we have to be very careful, because it is a time warp. It sucks you in, and you don't even realize how much time has gone by. So what I've done is I've created a couple of different examples for you here, and I'm going to go ahead and make it all show up so you can see what that looks like. So the example that I have here is one for customer service, promotion, and then recruitment. And I'm using this example for Illinois WorkNet. Now, of course, this is my group, so this is the easiest for me to show you kind of how it works out. But what you'll notice is in the file share, you have the documents. So you have a worksheet that walks you through kind of the same process. And then within that worksheet, you'll have a Lotus diagram. And what it is, it's just a tool to help you brainstorm over these topics, right? Because I really want people to be able to keep all of these goals that they create within the context and the culture of their organization. So people, policy, metrics, and process. And so for instance, with Illinois WorkNet, I'm going to start with the customer service, and go ahead and you know, pitch in ideas if you have some in the chat pod, or go ahead and ask your questions. So for our pitch for customer service, what I have here is we want people to know that it's real-time answers for your real-time questions. And so that would be our pitch for customer service. For our point is information. We really, and it's the nature of the type of group that we are, we're an online platform, and so we're all about disseminating information, communicating, providing information and resources. And so it really is, it depends on your group and what you do. Our one thing is seamless access to third-party tools. And so we have, our integration with Indeed. We have the various labor market statistic information. You can do career searches, and you can do your skills profiler. You can go through you can do assessments, and find out what your top skills are. So it's really about what you can do, um, to kind of get everything in one place. And so that's what we want to be known for with our customer service. And then the type of relationship that I think we have with our users, and so you all know we have about 200,000 active users on Illinois WorkNet. We get some crazy amount of hits. Um, and to just be able to understand how we're leveraging those conversations. And we've really built, and especially for those that have been with us from the beginning, this community of users to be able to have this two-way conversation instead of just us on the speakerphone and nobody can talk back to us. Kind of like yesterday on the webinar when nobody could hear us. So it's really about being able to provide on-the-fly information about the latest services and programs. And, there's a lot of new things always happening in the WEO world to individuals, businesses, and workforce and educational professionals. And so the people that do that on our team are program team members coordinated by topics. And so, for instance, I do lots of the business stuff, industry stuff. You have Chelsea that does a lot of the individual pathway information for job seekers. You have Natasha that works on all of the workforce professional resources. And so what you want to do is you want to identify that person that can speak on that topic so that you don't have to have somebody come back and ask you, well, what does that mean? Or, you want to be able for them to have the autonomy to be able to share and respond in real time, because then it kind of it null voids the entire process of being able to respond. Um, and then for us, our process is daily um, posts. There's weekly things that we post about. We have schedules, and then event promotion. And it really depends on what's going on. And I'm sure Chelsea is still on, but if she can go ahead and give an example of kind of how long it takes her to post some of this stuff, just to give you an idea or the indicator of um, the amount of time we spend doing it. And then the last part for the metrics is how are you going to measure this, right? So it's going to be traffic, it's going to be interactions, but it's also going to be about engagement. Are you getting feedback? Are you getting questions? Are you talking to yourself the entire time? Are people even on the same page that you're on when you're sharing this information? What type of impressions are being created? And I mean both, right? Like the feedback, but also you can get impressions on the type of analytics that you have with these tools, as well as clicks and hits and people sharing. And so I get tons and tons of feedback on my LinkedIn group, for instance, the Illinois WorkNet LinkedIn group, and people share so much, and we have over 500 members at this point, and people are constantly talking and helping each other and sharing and pointing people in the right direction. Sometimes, they have concerns or complaints, and so it's their way to reach out to me. And I think that this is a great way to be able to really gauge, are people listening to what I'm saying, right? Are people really interested in these types of topics? Now, moving on to promotion, our pitch for promotion is be the first to know. We want you to know as quickly as we know, right? And especially in the world that we work in, where people are really trying to get into a job, really trying to get into a training, um, time is really of the essence, right? And so it's really important to get back to people as quickly as they can for them to get back into the workforce and have happy, productive lives, right? So for us, it's really about being able to have that. And so, of course, again, it's information because of the nature of what we do. And then our one thing is stay connected, and you'll see that on my email when I blast you all with my follow-ups. But it really is. You want to be there in the first place so that you know what's going on. And a great example for this that I always use is about these webinars. Last program year, we had something like 3,000 participants, a little bit more than 3,000 participants on various topics from, um, the job search tools to starting a small business and all the information that we're using. And I see that Chelsea is posting on here kind of the amount of time that it takes. Um, so it's really about having access to these types of trainings because they are free. They're archived, of course, but you get to participate and you get to have that networking experience as well. And so with the small business webinars we did about a series of 6, and we had over 800 people participate all together, and it was just amazing to see people really truly build their businesses through that process. And so this is why you would want to stay connected. And then, of course, the relationship is the same, on-the-fly information. Um, depending on promotion, for instance, Chelsea does a lot of our promotions and um, various things that's going on. So, for instance, like the webinars and the training. Um, and then metrics are the same, especially because of the type of information, for instance, that we use. The other part is about recruitment. So for us, for instance, with Illinois WorkNet, what our pitch is, we want innovative workforce professionals. And the bottom line is within workforce, you really have to be quick on your feet because there's stuff always changing and new things always coming up. And you got to keep, you have to remain flexible. And so what we want, our point is we want tech savvy, in the know subject experts. And so if we were recruiting for a position, that would be what we want to have across. You need to be able to think on your feet and know what you're talking about and be able to have this information available. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise over here. Um, and then our one thing that we would want for recruitment is communication, right? Because this is what we do on a day-to-day basis is we communicate with the masses of people within this workforce environment, and you need to be able to have great communication skills. Um, and for our relationship, and this is the back end, so if the front end is we promote and we provide on-the-fly information, on our end, you need to be able to build and manage and maintain that community of users, right? And so these are the types of skills we would be looking for in that person or talent that we'd be seeking. And of course, people. This is program team coordination, depending on topics, so depending on where we would fit that person. And then the process is all of the above, including the actual need, right? So if you've got this deadline of you got to fill this position within a month, then it makes sense to really post every day. But if you've got a good 6 months to maybe search this out, and that never happens in real world, never see, it seems like it needed to happen yesterday. You would be doing that not as often. And the response, and we've tried this actually looking for programmers, is it's really about one, are you getting a response, meaning is anybody getting back to you based on the stuff that you've posted? Two, what's the quality of that person, and of that candidate? And then three, did you offer them a job? Were you able to articulate what you needed, and then were you able to fish that person out using the tools that you had at your disposal? So this is just a really good way to start thinking about the things that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and just see if anybody has any questions before I move on. I'll wait and see if there's any typing going on. Nope. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is I'm going to move into the challenges, and I think this group is going to have a good time with this because it's come up a lot in the chat already. So of course, the challenges with social media in the workplace, number one, obviously is policy or lack thereof. You have your system, so you're either part of a county or city or a state central management system. Um, you're going to have issues with expertise, and so your staff may be familiar, and I saw that on our webinar question. Some of you are familiar but would like to know more. Um, there's also a major conflict, I think, at times, and it's probably not intentional. It's just the lack of know-how of your leadership and really being able to have that support from the top. Of course, time. We're all doing a million different things, wearing a million different hats, and so how am I going to find the time to do this as well? And then, of course, staff. Do you have the staff available? And so I have a case study for you. It's also in the file share. And I'm not going to really spend a whole lot of time on it, but what I wanted to point out is some very common organizational challenges include, one, having a guide for staff on what's acceptable for social media in the workplace, right? And a lot of times people just kind of say, oh, you're the young person, you go do it. And I'm giving that exact example. For instance, in my group when I was working on some projects, and they're saying, "Oh, well, you must know this Twitter thing, so you do it." You can also have a lot of issues with standards, and so people won't think to create standards, for instance, with the type of branding that you're using, or even your Twitter handle. What is that going to look like for all your staff? Are you going to have a generic one for the organization, or are you going to let them have their own? As long as it includes, some type of reference to your place of work. And then what's the appropriate customer information? And then how do you post it? How do you respond to it? And then how do you handle the feedback, right? So do you just ignore it? Is that going to be your organizational policy? I'm going to just ignore anything bad and delete it. And that really is counterproductive to the whole point of kind of being on there. Um, or, um, questions about who's responsible for those answers. So I'm going to be the one that reads it, but then I'm going to send you an email about, I read this thing, what should I do? And by the time that systematic approach gets, you know, into motion, it may take a whole week for somebody to get back to that person, and then the moment has passed. And so these are some of the things that you should keep in mind. So the background on this case study is basically, and we just used government agencies because we work with government agencies and we're sponsored by a government agency. And some of the issues that come up is obviously you've got some staff that are ahead of the curve, and so they'll go on and start a page. And then there's tons of people that don't really understand the value of using social media in the workplace, or familiar, and don't have the know-how to really set it up for their organization. So that's the background. Um, and so what kind of results is, for instance, and some examples that I have here really quickly, is different people will create their own independent pages. So either they'll start one for their Twitter feed, their Twitter handle. They'll start a Facebook page for their organization because they say, oh, nobody's doing this, and clearly this is really important. And then that person will either leave or get assigned to something else, and they're no longer able to maintain that page. The other thing is, let me go back, sorry, is you'll have issues where there's no way to really gauge the type of information shared, and so that becomes a liability for the organization as well as the employee, because you don't know. Sometimes people share personal information on there, and you'd be really surprised at what some of the people put on there, thinking, oh, you're organization A, then it must be safe, and they don't realize kind of the dangers of putting that information out there. So that's kind of the backdrop. This is what happened. People started their own things, and then things got abandoned and out to the public. And so as a result of that, there was this plan of action created where a consultant was invited to come in and kind of assess the situation and make some recommendations. And so the recommendations that were made included some pretty obvious things, right? And so get rid of all the public sites, um, consolidate things when possible. This is really slow. Send staff to training, and then develop kind of a policy about what's appropriate and what's not. And so that's pretty much so far what any organization would really do. And so of course the staff went to training, and they were really able to develop a plan to consolidate all these things and identify the various branding for the organization, put some tasks up there to say, okay, this is what I'm going to be posting about, and this is what the customer interaction guidelines are going to be like, and here we've defined what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. And so the typical implementation issues, right, are pretty standard. You'll usually have an issue with the staff having an authority to post certain things. And then if you do find a staff that has authority, they'll say something like, well, this isn't in my job description. Why should I be the one that's doing it? And then if you do get over that hurdle, many, many times, and this goes back to the Virginia group, then you'll not be able to access that stuff because of your internal firewalls. And so pretty standard stuff. So what ends up happening is nothing, right? And so all of those recommendations went back to the group, and questions were asked, and plans were made, and they got all this training, but nobody could agree upon who the right person, the quote unquote right person was to be able to have the authority to take over these reins. And this is when we talk about leadership and having a champion. So you can have various groups, and you could have various people being really good, but this is not a standalone thing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop up some chats over here. So the first question is, what would you do now? And I'm going to, so this is a case study that we showed you all, but what would you do now to turn around the situation? So go ahead in that chat pod and just give your take on what you think would be a good approach. The second question is, what would you have done to prevent the missteps and address the issues? And then the last question, I'm sure this one will get lots of activity, is what do you anticipate your challenges being? See lots of great answers in here. Of course, feel free to scroll down. You can go ahead and pop these up so everyone can see as people are answering. And just so you all know, as part of your follow-up email, I'm going to go ahead and include these answers as part of your webinar summary, and it's just a really great way. This is how you identify best practices. This is how you identify kind of where people are at. So you'll be able to have access to this, and of course everything is going to be posted on Illinois WorkNet, and then include dates for upcoming webinars because we really want to build. So this is the foundational course. We're going to have this momentum to hopefully by the end of this series, you've got this very robust social media plan together, at least a plan as to how you're going to be able to utilize these resources for your organization, company, or group. So really great information here. Let's see what people are saying. Offer incentives to a staff member to get them enthusiastic about the opportunity. Absolutely. So that's a great way to prevent some of this stuff. Get all parties on the same page regarding policy. That's a good one. And actually, John is great for this because he's a great marketing guy. So maybe he can share tips on how it worked with his organization and getting that buy-in I mentioned. We also have Cindy. Finding and training. So Audie said, finding and training someone internally to do this well. Cindy wrote, leadership to coordinate. Yeah, and so I think we're all kind of on the same page with, I'm going to let people add their comments. John said we're not there yet. But I believe in you, John. I know you'll get there. Policies have in place that prohibit certain information without getting permission from several resources. Agreed. You have to have your bucket of stuff that people can do that you don't have to go back and forth on. So I'm going to go ahead and and get rid of these so we can continue on. Thank you so much for sharing. These are fantastic um, comments and feedback. And I'm going to go and switch this out. So these were just the discussion questions that we had. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dee Reinhardt. And Dee, you're all good with your connection?
Yes.
And Dee has a very interesting background. She came from the WIA world, and now she is an idea builder, and I'm so jealous that she stole that title because I was so going to use that. But she's fantastic with some of the digital marketing that she does, and she's going to go ahead and give us some tips and feedback. And Dee, I'm going to hand it over to you to be able to share.
All right, great. I actually help people build their social media presence, their digital marketing front. And I work with customers on LinkedIn. I do training, and I help them with Facebook, and I help them determine, just as Juana said, what's their pitch, what's their one thing. What are they going to share once they start sharing? So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a couple of things. And what I have here is a challenge. And when you're working on social media and when you're trying to do a presentation, you want to look to see what your actual presence is. So this is a website that I just looked at the other day to do a little bit of a social media audit. And what I want to do is I want to ask the group, well, what's missing? And then I want you to see, how do you find out what your presence actually is? And I want to find out what tools or platforms do you think might be useful or applicable. So just by looking at this particular front page of a website, what would you think that this business does? And put it in the chat pod for me. We'll just take a minute or two. Maybe not even. Do you notice, or do they have any social media presence? Do you think what they might be doing is, what platforms would be useful for them? And you might think that because it has the golf picture, and trust me, I'd rather be on a golf course than any place else, but this is actually a charter airline. So what their picture does is it scrolls, and it takes people on charter flights to wherever they want to go. So their picture scrolls quite a bit. What we're going to do now, if we have somebody, a brave soul that is interested in this, if you want to put your website address in the chat pod, we're going to go live, and I'm going to do an audit of what your presence looks like on the web. So do we have a brave soul that will put their website in the chat pod? Okay, ilmaternal.org. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm going to go live. So we're going to go to a new tab, and it is ilmaternal.org.
Right. And for those that are participating, you can go ahead and click on full screen on this box that Dee is sharing in if you want to see it a little bit better. Um, it's just for your own view, so you can have a bigger screen to be able to share.
All right. What I like about this website right now is it's got enough white space, because white space is your friend. And they talk about what they do right here in the top. They have information. I'm not quite sure if these are blog posts or if these are resources on the side, but it does look like they might change on a regular basis, so that would help the web crawlers go. We have a meeting challenge, and it looks like across the bottom they have a stationary bar that leads you to their Facebook and their Twitter. So, and they have a YouTube channel. So this is good. They have an RSS feed for their blog. That's good. You can tweet this. So if you see something on their page, you can tweet it. It also gives you an opportunity to share it. and it can also be translated, so that's a nice feature. Let's go to their Facebook page and take a look to see. Now this is interesting because this doesn't actually take you to the page itself. So somebody can't just like it unless that automatically does it with this application here. You can click on the top and become a fan. Now this is actually an application that I haven't seen yet, and I'm not sure I like it or not. I'd have to reflect on that a little bit. I want to check one thing here. The last time they posted was 2 hours ago, a day ago, 2 days ago, 6 days ago. So what it looks like is they're posting and they're sharing information. They are posting in a little bit of a spits and spurts kind of thing. So maybe a little bit consistent, a little bit more consistent posting might be a little bit better. Again, that could be who's on, who's busy for the day, who else is trained to do those sorts of things. For Twitter, this is another one of those applications, and it's taking a little bit of time to feed. One thing that you can do is automatically feed your Facebook status updates to your Twitter so that you've always got some current Twitter information coming out. I'm going to close that because it's taking too long to feed. YouTube channel. Again, the same application is taking you to their hopefully their channel that they may have created. And it's not coming up rapidly. All right. The other thing that you want to do when you're doing a social media audit, so everything looks pretty good. It looks like you have a presence on your page. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Google and we're going to actually look up where they fit on the Google search. So they actually come up in first place if you search them. Then I'm not quite sure what this keyword spy is, but it does come up with illinoismaternal.org. We have another document. So really, unless you're typing illinoismaternal.org, you're not necessarily being found, and you've got some competition from some of these other sources. This cancanit.com might be an organization that they belong to. Aboutus.org actually it's a wiki page about it, so that's good. But what you want to do is you want to be able to have all of your social media properties help you catapult all of you to the top of the page. I'm going to relinquish control here of the page.
You know, actually, Dee, why don't you, if you don't mind, would you try the CLC Illinois as well as another example? CLC Illinois.edu.
Is Illinois spelled out?
Yeah.
All right, so CLC
.org. Oh, sorry, .edu.
We're just going to search CLC Illinois. College of Lake County? Is that who it is?
Not sure.
I can't see my
Baylor,
chat right now.
Baylor,
so
is that College of Lake County? Yes.
Okay. So they show up first and second position. Well, actually, College Central is part of the job search function. And so then Amazon is doing something here. So there must be a printing company that also has the CLC acronym. Federal grant coming, CLC Illinois, Alexa, that's a search tool. Twitter's there with CLC. Up, down, I'm not quite sure what that is, but it looks like an education stats. And then Wikipedia. So they're okay in the search as long as you're searching CLC Illinois. Let's go to their website and take a peek. So we've got College of Lake County, but it's not obvious where your social media is on my particular screen. So it's down buried in the bottom. You've got a good presence here, but it's down buried in the bottom. So just looking at this and seeing my screen and how my screen comes up, and I have a 20-inch monitor, so my view is pretty big. For people to be able to see some of these things, it might be a little bit better if you can talk to your IT people about moving your social media presence up near the top.
Right, and it's also back to what we were saying before. People don't scroll down. Oh, I like it. They have browse aloud. Very cool.
Yes, yes.
You get points for that. So people don't tend to scroll down. It's always about like in your direct view and what you can see. And I mean, you do a pretty good job overall, I think. Go ahead and click on their Facebook to see what that looks like.
All right, so Facebook College of Lake County has several different pages, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So what we can do is we can go to their career and placement services, and it takes me to their Facebook page so that if I want to, I can like it, which is
Right.
good. So now we'll talk about the parts, some of the things that you can do for Facebook specifically, but in most cases, if somebody were just coming upon this, you would want them to come to a welcome page. So
And
then,
we'll talk
what?
about that within the basics, the
Yes,
tools
yes.
and all that.
So they have a YouTube channel. They have a Flickr channel. Flickr is a photo streaming channel. They have a blogger site. And we can talk about the difference between Blogger and having a blog on your self-hosted site. Twitter, they have a Twitter feed, so let's see if that's nice background. And now this is Diane Rarick. So is that who's on the call? Is Diane on the call?
No, I think this is maybe the person for
This is
them.
where
She's
their
their
Twitter
PR
page comes
person.
up.
Yeah.
Right. But that's where their Twitter feed from their website comes up to. So when I click on this Twitter, it
Right.
took me to Diane. So I don't know if
She may be
Diane's the
the
only.
authorized person, yeah.
She might be the only voice, yes.
Right.
So, but that's something to consider. It's like as you're making these decisions about what you're posting where, you want to make sure that that's the face and the voice that you want to represent your organization. And for example, my Twitter feed, I have a personal one, but I also have one that represents my business. So College of Lake County may want to consider actually doing a CLC, and then when they post, maybe it's Diane here posting. There are
Right.
organizations that have multiple posters that you just identify at the end with a caret who's actually posting.
Right.
So pretty good.
And lots of
Pretty good presence
organizations
though.
do that. They'll tag team on behalf of the organization just to kind of.
Exactly. Exactly. So do we have a minute or two for one other one? Did anybody else post?
No, I think we'll be good. I see somebody typing, but I think we're going to switch over because I want to have time for the Q&A.
Okay. I'll go back to the presentation then. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. So your screen is going to switch for a little bit. And we have a couple of things on here. We'd love for you to share. One, tell us if you like the webinar. Let us know how you feel. And This is obviously very important to be able to cater to the information that you need to hear about. The other thing underneath the polling pod is you have a file share, and this is where all those docs are again. So if you need to get them or you didn't grab them, they're under there. And then also what I've done is I've given you an opportunity to be able to practice your strategy, right? So what is your pitch? What is your point? And go ahead and just take a minute to brainstorm about some of that. And then while we get that started, you can go ahead and ask questions. So I'll go ahead and open the request floor mode for people to ask. Anybody?
So
I see
how many of
typing.
you have a personal LinkedIn profile? And how many of you have, we'll give you a second here because I got some hands raising. And how many of you have a company page for your organization? You can just leave your hand up if you do. How many of you have a Facebook page? Now, is that personal? And how many of you know if your organization has a Facebook fan page? All right, so we've got some hands going up and down. And from our original series, and we had that posted in the resources, and Juana will be sharing that with you. The big three are LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you need to convert your administration over to seeing the way of social media, those are the three that you want them to invest their time in. So has everybody taken a chance to put in what you could do for your pitch, for your point, what your one thing is, what your metrics might be? What would your process be? How often would you post? What would you post?
I think it takes a minute as well for people to kind of, this is stuff you have to think about. The other thing I wanted to mention is go ahead and add us on, the LinkedIns and all of that. I'm going to go ahead. Dee, add your information. This is a great way to obviously get a hold of us.
Where you
You
want
can
me to put
reach
it in the
out.
chat pod?
Yeah, if you can put in the chat pod. It's also in the resources box, but go ahead and add us to LinkedIn, and that's a really good way to find us. And mine is the same as Dee's, only has my name altogether. You could add that in for me, Dee.
Sure.
And just go ahead and reach out if you have questions or whatnot. The other thing is part of that sheet that I included for you all is the diagram, and it's really about helping you do exactly that, which is right now is brainstorming about how I want all this to look for my business, for my organization, for me as a job seeker, for myself as an employer. So give you some good opportunities to get that started. And I see people putting stuff in. There's some cool stuff on here. Um, very, very cool. Alrighty, well, if we don't have any questions and everyone is good, I'm going to go ahead and thank everyone for their interest. I'll send an email out with the follow-up information as to where the archive is available, so this will be a good way for you to maybe look over some of the stuff and then give you an idea to be able to really start building on your social media strategy. So With that said, thank you so much, Dee, for participating. This was fantastic, and it really kind of got people to start thinking about what they're looking at on websites. So I really appreciate that audit. And thank you so much
Thank you.
for the participants that are on. Have a fantastic weekend. Go do something fun. It's awesome weather right now for
Thank you, everybody.
Chicago, at least. Bye-bye.